Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Unlimited Realities. I am your host, Lisa Zimmer, and I had prepared a fabulous show for you. I really have been so excited to provide a wonderful healing show today, a healing show focused upon racial justice, racial healing, to bridge gaps, to create unity. And during the month of our history, of our needs to be seen as a people, as a culture, as one, I really wanted to bring together two incredible women. One who is doing a documentary, and that is called Imaginary Walls, and it is going to be out this summer in 2019, and it is also an incredible documentary that offers us a look at what race and racial issues look like in America in the 21st century. But it also puts a lot of focus upon people who are healing racism. And so, although I do not have the producer today of Imaginary Walls, she called in sick this morning with a cold, so I'm going to be improvising last minute here. However, that gives us a whole lot more time to talk with my second guest, my author that's coming on our show today, author Kara Meredith, who wrote The Color of Life, A Journey Toward Love and Racial Justice. But before we chat with Kara, I do want to bring attention to one couple who are doing incredible healing work to heal racism. And this couple, they're featured in the documentary films, like I was telling you, Imaginary Walls, which again debuts this summer 2019. These are two of several people featured in the movie, Imaginary Walls. This couple lives and hails in Oakland, California. They're known as Kokoman and Ashia Kladi from Oakland, California, and they've created a center called Attitudinal Healing Connection. So they offer a place where diverse groups of people gather to discuss their experiences and feelings about race, about what they've experienced in being of a different color or maybe married to a different color than themselves. And Kokoman and Ashia provide not only a safe place, but their open-mindedness, there's a non-judgmental environment. It's a place where there's healing and there's talk and embrace and unity. They stress that race is a construct of an ill society, a mass delusion, and that nobody should feel guilt or shame about what they've done or what they've felt in the past, because all of that, they believe, can be released, let go, and the participants can move forward in their lives. Imaginary Walls film, it explores this racial healing process and why it has worked for so many people, both here in the United States and in other healing centers. Ashia and Kokoman have helped form and found in both Asia, Africa, Mexico, South America, and they look closely at the success of the healing racial circles that they've provided, where they explore the personal life journeys. And Ashia and Kokoman's life story and journey is woven into this film as intimate portraits of who they are and how they met later in life and what drew them to this work. Really shows the synchronicity of soul and spirit working in harmony to create unity in our world and to create a bridge to all the gaps that we see right now. So I want to highlight this film because I feel like this film is such a powerful opening in our awakening, in our communication as an evolving species, both on planet Earth and here in the United States of America. So without further ado, I do want to introduce my next guest, who we're going to spend the hour talking to in great detail about her wonderful, incredible book that she wrote, The Color of Life. And the author I'm talking about is the one and only Kara Meredith. And this is going to be such a one. First of all, I want to bring you to her book again, A Color of Life. And this is a journey toward love and racial justice, but it's also a journey of it's her experience. It's her memoir, and it's what she has experienced by falling in love, being a white woman, and marrying a black man, and then having children, and how this has shown up in her life. So it's a very candid, very intimate conversation we're going to have right now, and I want to bring all of you to the attention of my guest, Kara Meredith. Kara, thank you so much for being on Unlimited Realities today. I absolutely loved your book.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's so great to be here with you, and thank you for your kind words.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you today. I have your book just really pulls you in. You are a wonderful storyteller, but you tell a story in a way that teaches us so much without teaching us in a way that we know we're being taught. And for me, that's a genius master teacher. So congratulations on being such a wonderful teacher to all of us in your book, on showing us not only how ignorant we can be unknowingly and not meaning to be, but how we all need to be a little bit more educated in how we communicate with one another, to the sensitivities of what has existed in our history. So I want to dig in, but I want to start from the very beginning, because in loving your story, Kara, you tell it in such a way that it's just a beautiful love story. And it's not only a beautiful love story, but it weaves so many lessons in there. So here you are, tooling around life, just graduated from and you are raised in a very suburban, conservative, white bread culture, really not knowing much about civil rights or anything, and certainly not the civil rights movement, which you weren't born during. So you decide, I'm for love. So you go to eHarmony. And who do you meet? You not only meet the man of your dreams, but the son of civil rights leader James Meredith. So let's go to that little piece of your life, the first beginnings of how life is starting, and you're opening up yourself to this new relationship, and you find out that this man you're starting to fall in love with brings you to this history book where his father is, and walked in the Freedom March in 1966 with Martin Luther King. And here you are sitting with this man's son. I mean, that had to be surreal in itself. That absolutely had to, take the wind right out of you. How did you feel about that? Where did that bring you? What thoughts were going through your mind at this time?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So one clarification, which is maybe even worse, is that this was not right after college. I was 30 years old. So I had a little bit of life experience, so to speak. But, he and I were older. So that's one of those that even though there were rumblings, so to speak, of coming to terms with my own racial identity, with racial injustice in the world around me and everything else. I mean, I was not 22, I was 30. So
right.
That's
my
mistake. Wow.
I looked at you as having, your degree in theology and taking your time, so my apologies. My time frame was wrong.
No, well, I mean, I think that's part of it too, where I go, oh wow, that was an even bigger chunk of life of not knowing and of ignorance. You know what I mean? So,
sure.
Where we were, James and I, we met, so to speak, via eHarmony in September, and probably a month later in October, we were what some might call fast and furious, but I think we had 11 dates in 14 days. We were rather certain with one another, but on the third date, he and I sat down. We were at his apartment, and he sat me down, and Marcus Miller, this amazing bassist, is playing in the background. We're sharing a bottle of Pinot Noir, the same bottle that we had shared on our first, just a few days earlier. And he says, I have something I want to show you. And he brings over to the coffee table this stack of photography books, and not scrapbooks, but legitimate, like, historical photography books from the civil rights movement. And he opens to one page in particular, and like you were telling the story as well, he opens to this earmarked page that he had obviously shown other people before. And there's a picture of Martin Luther King Jr. and a couple other men walking beside him. And he says to me, he points to the picture and he says, this is my dad. And I look at it and I go, your dad is Martin Luther King? I'm just sitting there. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on?
Right.
And he goes, no, this is my dad. And he points to the man right next to him. And so, Lisa, in answer to your question, I felt equal parts awe. I felt equal parts ignorant. I
sure.
felt, it's just this flood of emotions. I felt humiliated in a sense because I had absolutely no clue who his dad was. And James Meredith is most known historically. In 1962, he was the first black man or African-American man to integrate into the University of Mississippi, which was a huge event. I talk about it. I talk about it quite a bit in my book, but it involved federal intervention, 30,000 National Guard troops, among a host of other troops that were coming in. They called it the Second Civil War. Happened nearly 100 years after the end of the First Civil War. But it was one of those that was what he was most known for. And then 4 years later, that's when he and King intersected a little bit more. They knew who each other were. They had intersected. But 1966, he set out for the Meredith March Against Fear, and it was intended to be a single man's walk against the black fear when it came to voting rights. So in the state of Mississippi, where he still lives, he's still alive today, there was a lot of fear at that point in time around African Americans registering to vote. So he said, I'm going to protest this fear. So he set out to march and to walk for 30 days through the state of Mississippi. And on the second day, he was shot. And because of that, that's what then led King and Stokely Carmichael, who birthed the Black Power movement, and a host of other leaders to come in and to walk for him. So that's what that picture was at. And that's where I had absolutely no clue. And I'm sure that I learned about the man who would later become my father-in-law in history classes and even in education classes. I was an education undergrad. But at that moment, as a 30-year-old woman, I had no clue who he was.
Incredible. So, and to give you, some apology on that. I mean, honestly, as another white educated woman in America, I cannot tell you that there's been a whole lot of education in my education about the civil rights movement or Meredith. So I would totally understand you feeling ignorant. If I could myself claim ignorance to that. If it was called on me at 30 years old, I'd have to go Google it.